Owning a home is part of the American dream, but the road to home ownership among some Black Americans can be a bumpy one. A new report by the Financial Times finds Black Americans are almost twice as likely to be turned away for financing than their white counterpart with the same income. LendingTree has also looked at the numbers, finding nationwide Black applicants are 1.7% more likely to be denied a mortgage than home buyers of all races. Limited generational wealth, income disparities, and discriminatory practices are just some of the challenges that keep the Black homeownership rate lower than other racial groups. So for more on this, let's bring in John Hope Bryant, founder, chair, and CEO of Operation Hope, founder, chair, and CEO, Bryant Group Enterprises, and best-selling author of Financial Literacy for All. John, thank you for being with us. Always loved having you on. When you hear these statistics, what do you think the real issue is with the system reviewing Black applicants and applicants overall?
Well, good to be with you, Janae. But the real problem is that you don't have an Operation Hope solution across the country yet. That would solve the problem in total right now, because we're raising credit scores, lowering debt, increasing savings, making people more approvable. So that's the now answer. The historic answer is the data is right. That you've got a hangover here. You've got a hangover that's 100 years old, really 175 years old, that is tied to a history of discrimination in the country, by when banks were owned by and financial institutions were owned by private families, and a lot of the stuff was done. The government discriminated, FHA, in the early 20th century. So none of that's sort of a surprise. Then you have the fact that basically the formula was created by those who were using the formula, which was mostly back then white Americans. So it wasn't racism per se. It was really, I'm designing something, using something for myself. And then the worst part is that Blacks never got the memo. There was a Freedmen's Bank, 1865, as you know, created by Abraham Lincoln, to teach free slaves about money, financial literacy. He was unfortunately assassinated a month later. The bank drifted and was allowed to fail. And we never got the memo on financial literacy. Today, so one thing the data is not showing, Janae, is the credit score data. We'll get into that hopefully in our next back and forth. But that's the key, that plus precise ratio. So if you bring in other things like rent statements and utility bills, you get a better picture of the current applicant pool, because in a lot of these communities, you don't have prime credit providers. That's where I grew up. So you have secondary, you have used car dealerships, you don't have big banks and corporations. And so you're getting bad data, you're not getting good data.
Okay, so that does help paint more of the picture. Now, Financial Times pulled numbers from 2018 and 2023 collected under the Home Mortgage Disclosure Act, a law introduced half a century ago aimed at ending discrimination in the home loan market. But 40 years later, experts say not much has changed, to the point that you were making. So what's your take?
Well, it's lazy capitalism. If you're making money right across the street from you in suburban, wherever you are, why go to underserved any place? Why stress yourself? The problem is that the country is becoming, the problem for lazy capitalism is that the country is becoming more and more diverse. Right? My rich friends need my poor friends to do better, if only to stay rich. So you cannot keep this up for another 20 years or another 10 years. We need everybody to rise. You can take no pleasure from the fact there's a hole in my end of our boat. And wealth and home ownership is the number one way you create wealth in America. So Black home ownership rate about 44% last time I checked. White home ownership rate about 75%. The delta, that 30% difference, is a large part of the wealth gap. And it's not that Blacks are not qualified. We've been doing so much with so little for so long. We can almost do anything with nothing. But we never were taught financial literacy, and we've had wealth creation opportunities for far less time. It goes back to what I said before about the hangover. I got an antidote for you. It's what Operation Hope does. But the hangover is 175 years advantage, self-dealing, or really self-creation of the formulas, and no updating of the data or the software in the last 30 or 40 years. So you end up with this. The data is correct. But what I'm learning is that Fulton Bank in Pennsylvania, one of our partners, we've done $1.2 billion in home ownership, Janae,
wow.
for Black ownership. Bank of America has done with us, I think my people have told me it's like $40 million are pending applications. A large part of those are being approved. Wells Fargo is doing stuff with us, and I'm showing positive data because we're working, coaching people. It's not lowering the standards, it's increasing the competency. Because half of the black people have a credit score below 620. Little known fact, right? So you get we're seeing credit score increases of 54 to 100 points, and that confidence is kicking in, and people are getting approved. That's $4.5 billion of capital just through Operation Hope work alone. And a lot of these banks, the banks today are publicly traded, not privately owned from 150 years ago. I own the bank stock. You own the bank stock. The bank wants to fund the loans, but who's bridging that to get folks from unqualified to qualified? We are.
And so, John, credit is exactly the thing I wanted to ask you about next, because that's one of the factors in the study. It includes credit score, but how significant of an obstacle is credit score for black applicants? And what can people do if they are, quote, credit invisible, but have the dream of owning a home?
It's everything, Janae. I mean, your credit score, nothing changes your life more than God or love than moving your credit score 120 points. somebody going to the club over the weekend, and they see somebody who's attractive, ask them what their credit score is after their name. I'm joking, but I'm serious. Like, it's as important as a 4-year education. And again, we've mapped every zip code by credit score in this country. And I want to actually give experience, some credit, and some thanks for helping us with the data. But it's a Hope index. You can go on my website and put in your zip code. I'll tell you your credit score. We found a 200 point difference, 15 minutes apart, Janae.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. In every urban city in America, everyone, like, it's unbelievable. Black and white, by the way, rich and poor, it doesn't matter. What we found is if you live in Chicago, okay, you got Lincoln Heights. I think it's called Lincoln Heights. It's 750, something like that, credit score. You go to Garfield Park, 15 minutes away from that, and it's 500 and some, 580, 600. Wow. Atlanta, same thing. LA, same thing. Doesn't matter where it is, right? Seattle, same thing. So you lived at 61 years of age in a 500 credit score neighborhood, 550. You lived at 81 years of age, 15 minutes apart, in a 700 credit score neighborhood. 20-year difference. A 50-point pop in your credit score will increase your lifespan 5 years. And every other thing follows, right? Including ability to access prime credit. Because as you know, Janae, in these 500 credit score neighborhoods, 600, you have check cashers, payday loan lenders, rent-to-own stores, title lenders, liquor stores, pawn shops. You live in a 700 credit score community, 15 minutes away, right. It's nirvana. Banks, restaurants. So this is an emerging market opportunity for banks. This is a tax revenue opportunity for the federal government. Look at the lack of black homeownership and the lack of black approvals as an opportunity, not a problem. Let's look at them as an emerging market. We don't want a handout. We want a hand up. Credit score is everything because they got the job, they got the hustle, they got the work ethic. They want to be a homeowner like everybody else. Let's count credit. Let's count the rent statements, like companies like Isuzu who do that, African-owned company, by the way. Let's count utility bills.
Yeah. And John, we're out of time, but real quick, the first thing someone can do if they're looking to improve their credit score?
Consumer debt, the biggest pop. And again, this goes back to historic challenges. If you have been building wealth for a short period of time, you have more consumer debt and less stock wealth, less ownership wealth. But that is going to count against you the most. Get that under control. Get that down to 30%. You see your credit score pop.
So getting that consumer debt down. John Hope Bryant, thank you so much. Always appreciate having you on.